I'm JC Faxas, and you're listening to MI's Most Interesting People. Today on the show, we have Johnny Juice Rosado. Let's get into it and find out what makes Juice one of MI's most interesting people. So how you doing, man? How's things?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Notwithstanding the circumstances that this country and the world is in right now, I can't complain. I'm doing pretty good.
Good, man. You look good. You got, a little something that, hadn't seen you with before.
Yeah, I got quite a few years that you haven't seen before either. So,
that's true, huh?
Yeah.
In a bit. Let's see. You've got, 30 years of experience in the music industry. You've been, nominated for an Emmy and for the NAACP Image Award as a score composer. You've been inducted into the Long Island Music Hall of Fame in 2007. Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Public Enemy in 2013. You're a platinum producer, a turntablist, an engineer, musician, educator, lecturer, and very well respected in the hip hop culture. But before you were Johnny Juice, you were Chicky Thing, right?
Chicky Thing, little man.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of nicknames growing up.
Yeah.
That was one.
So let's start out. I mean, how do you get into this music thing?
I come from a musical family. My grandfather was actually a percussionist on my mother's side, a master percussionist. They come from the city of Guayama in Puerto Rico, and Guayama was known as Pueblo de los Brujos, city of witches. That's where Santeria known to exist. But what people don't realize about Santeria is that it comes from the Yoruba culture of Western Africa, and the drummer was seen as a very sacred thing. And not anybody could just play the drums, meaning the hand drums like a conga, bongo. And those things were, those instruments were used to actually tell stories, to communicate. My grandfather was one of those people, and then my uncle became one of those people. And my uncle kind of raised me in a lot of ways because my father committed suicide when I was 13. So
sorry about that.
That's fine. And he was my uncle. My mom's brother was my father's best friend. So, he's also, the oldest of that generation. I'm the oldest of my generation. So he took it upon himself to kind of train me, and I became a percussionist. Everybody in my family plays something, and that was just a natural progression.
And what's your main thing? Congas, bongos?
I played congas and bongos. I started out as a bongosero, and then I became a conguero. I played a little bit timbales, and then I played drums. And then along the way, I found turntables. And my father died at 83. My grandfather died at 86, the same exact day.
Oh, wow.
Right. So when he passed away, he was on his deathbed. He had cancer. He actually passed his bongos to me.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Right. So instead of passing it to my uncle, who I knew was going to get him, he passed him to me. And my uncle was a ridiculous bongosero, but he passed him to me. So, and it just so happens that year I made my first record, a Public Enemy. So I think he saw something I probably didn't. And I'm grateful for that.
Oh, that's an awesome story, man. So my condolences on your dad, bro. I'm sorry.
Hey, man, it actually motivated me. Some people could use that kind of situation to use it as an excuse to not do whatever. But I instead use it as motivation. I've taken upon myself, this huge task of carrying, my generation forward. And I lead by example. I don't just say, hey, let's do this. I'm doing it first, and I say, follow me. So, I started to lead by example. I don't want anybody else to sit there and say, oh, you know what? We figured he'd fail, or we figured he'd slow down or whatever because his father passed away. I don't want that to be an excuse. So it motivated me, and at the same time worked. So.
All right, man. Great. That's a great way to turn something, not so good into a positive. So good on you.
Thanks.
Let's see, before you got into Public Enemy, rumor is you were a b-boy.
Yes, I mean, I was raised in the Bronx. I was actually born in Manhattan because my mother didn't want to have me in the Bronx. So she actually jumped in a cab when she was about to have me and dipped down to Mount Sinai on the west side of Manhattan. But I was raised in the Bronx. I lived in the Bronx through my early and formative years, all the way up to my double digits. And in the process, I watched hip hop coalesce and be created in the 70s. Um, the first thing I did actually was artwork. You know, me and my boys would sit there and draw Marvel comics, you know, and we would do them in little graffiti pieces, you know, and we put our faces on top of the superheroes. And eventually I started watching the guys, you know, B-boy. And when I saw that, I'm like, that's right up my alley. I was a martial artist since I was 3.
Oh, wow.
The same uncle that I said raised me was Vietnam veteran, airborne ranger. And I became a medical professional and he just recently retired. But he was a combat veteran with a Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart. The guy was ridiculous. And he's also a third-degree black belt in Goju.
Dang.
So he taught me martial arts when I was a kid. My mom was a martial artist. She trained with him. my pops trained with him. And then I trained. And when I saw the B-boy moves, I'm like, wow, that's just like my martial arts. So I started kind of doing that and I started integrating that. And that became my way in because I was too young to own equipment or to afford equipment. Nobody could afford equipment in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's when the blackout of 1977 became a blessing to a lot of people. And I'm not saying that stores were looted, but I'm saying, you know, some of the stores were a little lighter in inventory after.
That's kind of what happened over here in LA during Rodney King. All of a sudden, you know, everybody's got gear and, you know, a couple of big hits came out of that.
Exactly. So that's what New York was about in those years. But I couldn't, you know, all I could do was, you know, I would go to the park. I was too young to really, really jam. But my aunt, who was my youngest aunt, she would babysit me and she would take me to the park and tell me, stay right here, right? Her and her best friend would go in there and do the little thing, dance and whatever else they were doing. And me and my aunt's best friend's little brother, Dave, we used to go to school together. We'd be told to stay in a certain area of the park, but of course, we didn't listen. And we move over to little areas where people were dancing. And that's the only place that kind of let a little man get in. So I do a little dance. And, oh, look, a little man, look, a little cheeky thing getting down. And I'm like, wow, I like this. You know, I get down, I dance. I can't get behind a turntable. They won't let me over there. There's a wall of people over there. But I could definitely get in the cipher. So I started dancing. And I started getting real good to the point where I was beating people a lot older than me in little battles. And that became my intro to the hip-hop world formally, was as a B-boy.
And then you got into DJing too, right?
Yes, my cousin Benji was a DJ. He was older than me. My mom's cousin. He wasn't my cousin. My mom's cousin, my second cousin. And we used to go to his house. And to be honest with you, it was kind of boring going over there. My mom loved his father. That was her favorite uncle. So we'd always go over there. But when I found out Benji had equipment, I was up in his room all the time trying to get on. Eventually, you know, I would find people that were DJs and they would let me get put on. You know, they would let me DJ when they were out smoking some weed or something. And so I would actually get weed and bring it to them. I didn't smoke, but I get my hair. And then they go smoke their weed and I'd be able to get on the turntables. My man DJ Will, I got to credit him. And then the rapper Charlie Brown, his older brother, was my first real DJ partner. Him and Hig, well, his name was DJ Hig and DJ Will. So those became my DJ partners. And they were older than me, and I credit them with really like indoctrinating me into the DJ world.
That's cool. So then, but how'd you get into the turntablism? Because I mean, back then, this was probably what, the 80s or so?
It was the early 80s.
So it was like freestyle and some leftover disco, and then hip hop was just coming in.
Just coming in. Run DMC came out with It's Like That and Suck MCs in the 82, 83, about that time frame. But before that, we were listening to like rap songs from Enjoy Records and Sugar Hill. So rap really wasn't real big, but at the time we didn't, you know, as DJs, we didn't really segregate or compartmentalize our musicianship.
Yeah, we just played music.
Right. It's just like, you know, if it was a dope record, you play it. You know, like now Lisa would probably be considered like freestyle.
Yeah.
But back in the day, Lisa was just played alongside another record that was about the same tempo, that had the same vibe.
Yeah, it was just a jam.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't really matter as much. I don't think at the time, but I actually started playing breaks. So I would play Woman by Barabbas or Melting Pot by Booker T and the MGs. Of course, It's Just Begun by uh I'm over here going blank. And what's his name? Jimmy Castor Bunch.
Okay.
Jimmy Castor was a sax player. This Just Begun. He was actually also one of Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, believe it or not.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so so those are kind of my mom and them would dance to, right? So they were rocking to things like that. They were getting down to, everything from Motown to Stax to these funky TK disco records. So I would raid my mom's collection, because she had a serious collection.
Yeah.
And my aunt also, she was a big Barry White fan, a big Rick James fan. She had those records and she let me rock those. So I had a very musical family that allowed me to raid their stuff and get busy. So
that's nice. So then how'd you get hooked up with Public Enemy?
Well, see, we had as you were saying earlier, we had something that was a bad situation get turned into a good situation. My mom got sick and went to the hospital, and they told her she was fine. She went home. She almost died. So we sued the hospital. We got some money, so we moved out to Long Island from the Bronx. Right. So moving out to Long Island, we had a choice, move upstate or move to Long Island. We decided to move to Long Island because we knew some cats out in Long Island. So we moved out to Long Island, and I quickly decided to establish a little hip-hop there. I started b-boying, started a crew. One of the members of my crew was a young kid that came looking for me. He said, "Yo, I heard you the nicest dude out here. I want to be part of your crew." His name was Trevor, and he came with his little brother, Paul. Years later, Trevor would become Busta Rhymes, and Paul would be his little brother. So, so he was part of my crew.
What was the name of your crew?
Well, we were called at the time the Wild Style Rockers or some ridiculous name like that. It was whack. But we had some dope B-boys, right? So we would battle these cats on the other side of town, and one of them was a guy named KBMC. He was called himself Mr. Pop. That guy would go on to become Charlie Brown. So my crew would always battle his crew with B-boying, and then later when we decided to become a DJ rap crew, we decided to battle, and then eventually I met Charlie Brown's older brother Hig, who was like part of this crew called TBA, the Best Around, biggest mobile DJ unit out in Long Island, one of the biggest. And his best friend was Eric Sadler, one of the members of the Bomb Squad, before they were called the Bomb Squad. Eric had a rehearsal studio in Long Island, and Eric heard they were looking for rappers and DJs upstairs. So he called Hig and said, "Yo, I know your little brother raps. Why don't you get him and his crew over here? And, there's a battle and they could win a record deal or something." So Brian called me, Brown. At the time, it was me, Brown, and Busta. We had a crew called the Bum Rush Crew. That was our rap crew name. Busta's name was Chillowski. And Brian, and Brown's name was KBMC because his name is Brian. Crush BMC because the word crush was big.
Yeah.
Crush Groove.
So we and E at the end of stuff was big too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, with an E. So we went out to the studio. There was a line around the block. It was a little rehearsal demo studio that Spectrum City had. Spectrum City was one of the other big mobile DJ units. And they were comprised of MC Chucky D, MC DJ Flavor, Wizard KG, and Mellow D. Wizard KG would go on to become Keith Shockley. Mellow D would go on to become Terminator X. And who Chucky D and Flavor are. So we went up in there. We tried out. We thought we were going to battle as a crew, but we didn't. There was all the DJs battled each other and all the MCs battled each other. They recorded us, and if they picked us, they would call us back. Well, I won the DJ contest.
All right.
So I just got a job at Burger King on a Friday. I worked one day on a Saturday, and at night I got home. There was a message saying, "Yo, you won the contest coming Monday." And Sunday I quit Burger King. So I worked one day at Burger King. And I went into the studio, and Chuck said, "We forming this crew called the Kings of Pressure. Signed you guys to Next Plateau Records." We got signed. We did a couple of songs from Red Alert Girls Berserk album, his inaugural album on Next Plateau. We did a song called You Know How to Reach Us and Give Me the Mic. And on the way back to my crib, because Chuck would drive me back and forth to the meetings because I didn't have a car at the time. Chuck said, "Hey, you know what? We're doing an album, man. You know, you mind scratching on it?" I'm like, "Sure." I said, "You got it? You know, you got any material?" He popped in a cassette, and that first song he played was "My Uzi Weighs a Ton." So I'm like, "It sounds cool. What do you want me to do?" He said, "I'll pick you up next week. You know, on the weekends, you don't miss school." Because, you know, I was a talented and gifted student. My mom said if any of that got interrupted, all of that DJ stuff was over. So I packed up a crate of records, my turntable, one mixer, my mixer, my one turntable, went to INS Studios, and I laid down the scratches for Yo Bum Rush the Show. And that was the beginning of my Public Enemy days.
When you guys first started hitting, and did you know it was you were onto something, or was this just like something that you were just doing, going, whatever, I'll do it and see what happens, or was it something you go, man, you know what, I know we got something?
I don't think first of all, I didn't care, honestly. I'm like, yo, I'm just doing, I love the DJ. I was DJing, but I wasn't DJing or b-boying. I was on the national taekwondo team, at the junior taekwondo team. I actually went to the Junior Olympics and won in 1984. Yeah, so, you know, I had a lot of things going on. So that was just another thing I loved to do. So you want to throw me on records, let's go. You know, I thought the stuff we did with Kings of Pressure was dope. So, you know, Public Enemy thing was just another record. You know, going into a big studio like that, I've never been in a huge studio like that. INS, 24-track 2-inch reel, drum machines and stuff. And Eric Salas teaching me how to program this. Keith is teaching me how to do a little something. Eric's teaching me and Keith stuff in between my DJ takes, you know. So as far as I was concerned, this was the life. You know what I mean? And then, you know, I had a lot of other weird things that happened that kind of expanded it. We went to dinner one time with Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons. I should say we, but really it was Chuck and Hank. I happened to be getting a ride from Chuck, so I was with them. So we sitting there, and I'm afraid to order because I didn't have the money to pay for it. It is an expensive restaurant.
Yeah.
So Chuck was like, "Don't worry about it, they got it." And I'm like, "Nah, I don't let people pay for me like that." He's like, "It's on the company. It's a tax write-off." So he started teaching me about the business of writing off expenses. I'm like, "Okay." And then Rick Rubin was like, "Well, I got to get back to the studio. We're supposed to do this Beastie Boys record," which they weren't out at the time. And you know, he was like, "I need a DJ though. So I got to, you know, my other DJ canceled. So I got to find somebody to scratch on these records." So Chuck goes, "Well, Juice could do it right now." So after the dinner was over, I went with Rick. I did scratching on Desperado and a couple of other records that Desperado was on the Tougher Than Leather album, the movie. And a couple other records that never came out. But then Rick got me car service back to Long Island. So I'm like, yo, this is what I should be doing, you know, when I'm not in school, of course. And it just took off from there. And then, of course, when Leaders of the New School finally got down with Brown and Busta and Dinko and Milo, I ended up, you know, going in the studio and doing scratches on Transformers for them, you know, it's my boys. They said, "Can you come in and do it?" Of course. And that whole Public Enemy thing, it was more like a family, you know. A lot of groups, Kings of Pressure, Son of Berserk, No Self-Control, Leaders of the New School, True Mathematics, Robert S. We were doing like everything. So I was there. You know, whatever you need me for, throw it at me.
They were calling you, you know, you were there, right?
Yeah, man, you know, I was ready.
Tell me about getting inducted into the Long Island Hall of Fame and then the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, it was wild because I got contacted by a dude, I think it was on Facebook. It was Richard Lahamadou. He was the chairperson. And I think they only had one induction at the time. They had one induction ceremony. Billy Joel, and of course, Billy Joel's the big Long Islander.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people went in, and DMC went in because DMC lived in Freeport, Long Island for a while. And they consider Queens and Brooklyn part of Long Island because they're technically on the island.
Okay.
So I said, "Cool, you know, let's do this. What do you need from us?" And then they told me. So I was at the time like Chuck's right-hand man. So I hit up Chuck. I said, "Yo, they want to induct us." He said, "All right, well, we'll just set it up." I'm like, "Okay," because that was pretty easy. I told them I would do it, but only if everybody that's involved in Public Enemy gets an induction trophy. Because sometimes they induct the group, but they only induct the 2 stars. I wanted to make sure Griff and the S1Ws got got a induction statue. I wanted to make sure that the bomb squad got him. I wanted to make sure everybody got them. So they made like unbelievable amount of these things. I'm sure they never had, unless it was like Earth, Wind and Fire or something like that, like that many people. It was crazy. So we did that. And then we shot out to the induction ceremony. We got inducted with the Turtles, Blue Oyster Cult, LL Cool J, because LL Cool J was born on Long Island in Bayshore. And a bunch of other people. Remember the Magic Garden? Something in Carol. They would sing in front of the flower patch, and they had this squirrel the puppet thing, and it was like a PBS show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So apparently they're from Long Island. They were there. So I was like, wow, there's a lot of things that jogged my memory, and it was real cool. We performed. Chuck, myself, and DMC. DMC inducted us, but then DMC did the Flavor Flav parts because Flav didn't show up for this particular ceremony. So Chuck did the rhymes, I did the DJing, DMC did the flavor vocals, and then we had a live band behind us that went along with us. So that was a real cool thing, and I'm still involved with them. I'm on the Education Advisory Board for the Long Island Music Hall of Fame. So
yeah, you do some lectures, right?
I do lectures. I do 3 different types of lectures. One of them is a hip hop history type of lecture. One of them is a philosophy lecture. I call it Keeping It Ethereal, and where I discuss my personal philosophy that mixes martial arts, hip hop, and and my military background, because I was in the military.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you. And then I do a third one, which is basically a production. It's the art of production, hip hop production, and how it went in phases and how it recycles all the time. So these things all coalesce. As I was teaching in high school for a while, I was teaching music classes. I did something called High Schoolers Understanding Musicology, where I would basically take students that were having problems in other subjects and reinforce those subjects using music. So I could teach them vectors in math by teaching them how you could predict when a quarter note delay would happen based on the beats per minute. This is all done in formulas, right? Of course, now in your studio software, you just put in your beats per minute, it does it for you. But back in the day, you would have a hardware unit that you would have to know the milliseconds.
Yeah.
Either that or you'd have to sit there and tweak it, and that sounds good enough.
Yeah,
but
I had a cheat sheet.
Yeah, everybody had a cheat sheet, right? Well, the thing is, they don't need that now, so they don't know that. So when somebody has a problem with math, I'm like, well, let's teach you how to do this. What you're having a problem with using music. And this is the same type of formula you're having a problem with. But now you can hear the formula because you can hear the quarter note delay on the snare, right? And see now what happens when you put the wrong numbers in the formula. See what happens? It doesn't work. And see what happens here, and then they almost see the formula come to life.
Okay.
So I was doing that for like about 3 years.
One other thing, I did a little bit of research and looked at some stuff. You also scored not just one, but a couple of movies, right?
Yes, I did. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is On the Shoulders of Giants, along with Bill Cunliffe, and I had some incredible help and some incredible peers that were involved, like Wynton Marsalis and Herbie Hancock, Chuck, of course, will.i.am. And we got nominated for a few NAACP Image Awards, including Best Duo Group Collaboration, which we lost. And then, of course, Best Album, which I produced, which was Beaten Steadily by Whitney Houston. So I can't be too mad at that. I think the people that were nominated were Whitney Houston, the 25th anniversary of Bad by Michael Jackson, and Alicia Keys. Yeah, I'm surprised I was even nominated. So, but it was a good experience. I also did Ali Rap, which was on ESPN, that got nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Music Composition. Chuck and I did the theme, but I scored the actual show.
So you actually know music.
Yes, right? I mean, I'm not really great at sight reading because I don't practice enough.
Yeah.
but I can. Matter of fact, I performed at the ESPY Awards. I forgot which year. The first year Jamie Foxx hosted.
Okay.
He wanted a funky band other than the Oscars dudes that always play back, the union guys. So we went out there and it was live. So we rehearsed 8 hours a day for 5 days straight. Then boom, on Friday we did it live, right? And the music director, the first thing he did when we came in is he dropped a whole bunch of sheet music on our desk. It was like, if you can't read this, don't bother showing up on stage.
Who jumped in to save it?
None of us. I just smiled at him. I said, okay, I'll see you. I'll see you in a few hours. It's like, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I didn't need to sight read. Yeah. I needed to sight read to know where we were at. But I wasn't playing the notes on the screen. I was playing, I knew what we were playing, and I'm good enough to do it. But I just, there's some people that they sight read and it's their thing. But I was able to do it for the show and it came off great. And, I had a good time.
Cool. You also had to do a commercial, right?
I did a few commercials actually. And that was one of Charlie Brown's big things too. He was doing jingles for a long time. So that's some commercials. I've done some music for some commercials as well, like the Samsung LeBron James commercial. I did the trailer to Selma. I've had some very good opportunities that I was able to, really take advantage of and they enriched my musicality as well.
Nice. So who would you say your early influences were?
Musically?
Yeah, musically.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, without a doubt. Those guys are just so damn diverse. I mean, when you hear one song of theirs, I'm hearing rock, I'm hearing jazz, I'm hearing calypso, I'm hearing Brazilian rhythms like samba. The things I'm hearing out of one song is just all of that, really. So Earth, Wind, and Fire was one of my biggest influences. All the salsa artists on the Fania record label.
Okay.
Like Hector Lavoe and Willie Colon, Ray Barretto.
Yeah.
Which I base my scratches on percussion.
Yeah.
So while some people are very melodic with their scratches, and I can be too, and I have been, my scratching was originally based off percussion. So if you heard my scratches in some of the records, they were like, so
you're mimicking your bongos and
exactly. Yeah. So that's exactly what I was doing, and a big time percussion fan. So Eddie Montalvo, Ray Barretto, Nicky Marrero, Roberto Roena, there was Giovanni Hidalgo. There was a lot of congueros and bongoseros and timbale players that I really based a lot of my my work on when it came to that. And I'll be honest with you, there's still huge influences for me today. Jazz became a huge influence for me as well. People like George Benson, pre Give Me
the Night.
Quincy Jones, yeah, that production phase. We're talking about his jazz stuff. Even Quincy's jazz stuff when he was playing horns. Obviously, Miles Davis was a big influence on me.
So if you could go back, if you could do one gig with somebody that you've never worked with and you've always wanted to work with, who would it be?
An actual performance?
Yeah.
Man, just one person? I'd pick a whole superstar. I would say Prince, but I had the chance to actually interface with Prince musically, but not in the actual performance.
Yeah.
So, one of the greats like Stevie Wonder, or Prince, or even if you go back further, I know this sounds weird, but somebody like a Frank Sinatra, or somebody that somebody that in the big band era. Yeah. I would have loved to have been part of the Rat Pack, honestly. Because they weren't just, singers.
Yeah.
They were performers. They had like a whole thing going on with the comedy, with the singing, with the dancing. It was like It was a one-stop shop. So people that took their platform and elevated to a new level, any one of those, I would be grateful to perform with. But I've been fortunate to have done that already.
I think my favorite out of the Rat Pack is probably Dean Martin. He was just
Dino.
cool. Yeah, he was some about him. I mean, Frank was like the boss, I guess, but Dino was like the cool kind of drunk uncle who was just kind of chill.
I mean, I dug his vibe. My favorite was Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah, Sammy was the man.
That dude was just phenomenal. I mean, the dude played drums, vibes, piano. He danced, he sang, he acted. Come on, man. There was nobody touching him, man. It was like ridiculous. So, he was definitely an influence of mine as well. Because keep in mind, even as a dancer prior to being a DJ musician, I looked at those kind of cats too.
Tell me something that you've always wanted people to know about you that nobody really knows.
I know how to cook very well.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a real good cook. I mean, I don't like to really brag about that stuff, but people that usually chase my cooking are shocked, and I'm like, well, first of all, I'm Puerto Rican, so if anyone knows anything about Caribbean men cook. Like if you go into any Jamaican jerk spot, the men are usually the one doing the cooking.
Yeah.
So and while my mom was a phenomenal cook, my grandmother was a great cook, my grandfather was a ridiculous cook, and I took that as something that I had to pass down to my kids and my grandkids, because I do have grandkids now. So
what's your favorite? What's your favorite dish?
My favorite dish? Yeah. I'm partial to seafood type dishes.
Okay.
I make mean shrimp scampi. My shrimp scampi is crazy. But and I also bake. I make a Kahlua cake that's ridiculous.
Oh man. All right, you're gonna have to ship me one or something.
Yeah, man. I mean, it might melt by the time it gets out there. Yeah, but I can make you one. Yeah, man, definitely.
And since we're on the topic of food, what's your favorite restaurant? So if somebody's like, in your area, what's the bomb place to go?
That's a good question, because I love so many different types of cuisines, right? Yeah. So if I'm in the mood for lighter fare to go, if I'm in Manhattan, I go to Assault and Battery. They do fish and chips with different types of fish, but they're from the UK, so it's all 100% authentic. They got mushy peas and all that other crap. So fish and chips there, it's unreal. I mean, unreal. If you want to go Indian, there's the Bricklane Curry House. If you want to go Thai, if you like some good banh mi's, I'll take you to 12th Street. If you want to go get some Puerto Rican, I go to Casa Adela, which is on the Lower East Side. If you want some Mexican, there's a bunch of Mexican spots I would recommend. So, there's a couple actually out here. There's one called Oaxaca, which is real good. Yeah. I'm one of those dudes, as you can tell. There's a couple of Argentinian steakhouses I rock. There's Sur, which is phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? So, it just depends on. See, I'm a food connoisseur. Right. I travel the world. If I'm in Denver, I go to the Buckhorn Exchange. You know what I'm saying? They have the most ridiculous steaks. So again, no matter where I'm at, I'll find the spot. You know what I'm saying? I love Korean food too. So
what projects are you working on right now?
I have a band called The Oddysy.
Okay.
Spelled oddly, Oddysy.
Okay.
He is, it's me and another guy, KJ. KJ is a 6'5" white South African bass player. And I'm a 5'5" Puerto Rican, from the Bronx. So definitely the odd couple. He comes from a huge jazz background. And he has this weird voice, kind of like Stingish. And then, it's a combination of like hip hop and pop and a little bit of rock and a little bit of jazz and some funk and neo soul. So it like defies genre. As I say, we committed genre side. So it's hard to explain, but some of it sounds kind of like Jamiroquai-ish, maybe. And some of it doesn't. So depends on the song. We have a song called Bang Bang, which we had Chuck D do a verse on it. That song we did a video to, and it ended up winning Video of the Year at the International Independent Music Video Awards. So, which I didn't know we were nominated for. So he sent us an email and a link to the site, and we saw the video of the award ceremony. We won Best Alternative Video, and then we won Video of the Year.
Yeah, that's dope.
This is in the past couple of months. So
yeah, I'll end up tracking these down, and I'll put a link in the description so people can go in and check it out.
I've also been in your neck of the woods. I was in LA working with Mandrill.
Oh, really?
I remember Mandrill from the 70s.
Yeah.
They actually have a new album called Back in Town. COVID kind of delayed their release, but I think the album's coming out with the 300-page coffee table book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm remixing the whole album. So I was out there with Doc Rick Wilson, and we kicked it. I DJ'd kind of like a listening party in LA, and he said, "Yo, why don't you remix the album?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." So I'm remixing this Mandrill album. Rick asked me to become formally a part of the Mandrill family. I went out and I DJ'd their listening party, and album sounds great, and it got that fence walkish feel.
Yeah.
So now I'm about to, sit here and put my foot in doing a remix album for the whole thing, and aside from the Oddysy and that, I'm doing some other odds and ends projects. A couple of songs with my Leaders of the New School partners, Dinko D. I just did a song called Bring the Muscle Out with him and Shamello. Shamello is better known as the producer that did Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See for Busta Rhymes. And of course, Dinko D for Leaders of the New School. I'm working on Charlie Brown's solo stuff right now. I just finished fixing a bunch of songs for Public Enemy's new album, What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, including a song with Public Enemy and Cypress Hill, another song with Public Enemy and George Clinton.
Wow.
And a song with Public Enemy and the Beastie Boys and Run DMC.
Dang, so, you've been a little bit busy.
Yeah, a little something,
Nice, man. So anything you want to add, anything you want to plug that, maybe we didn't cover?
Nah, man, I'm just happy that in my 37th year doing this, I'm still able to continue, and meet some cool people like yourself along the way,
Too.
Well, this business is notorious, man. So when you meet people that are good people, it's a blessing, man. You a good brother, man. I'm glad I know you, man.
Thank you, bro. That's kind of why I wanted to put this together. I've been fortunate to meet a lot of really cool and interesting people and really nice people. And, I always tried to introduce one to another. So since we can't do something like that right now,
right.
This is kind of my way of introducing you to other cool friends of mine. So
sounds good to me, man. I'm glad that you thought of me, and I appreciate you, man.
Cool, man. Thank you, bro. And thank you for being a good sport and, being on MI's Most Interesting People. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Later.